Hello, everybody. Happy to be here. And it looks like everybody made it, so that the traffic wasn't such a big issue. We have a very exciting panel here today. We have so many industries that are presenting. We have the airlines. We have automotive. We have Victoria's Secret. What are they doing at IoT? We have a biopharmaceutical company. And we have a gas network. So what could all these people have to say about IoT? You'll find out shortly. But before we get started, how many in this room are somewhat related in their business regarding the customer journey for their companies? Why don't you just raise your hands if you could for a moment, please? Okay, great. And how many people have been in the same job for 10 years? Could you raise your hand as well, please? Got it. Great. Well, the reason why I mentioned that is 10 years ago, I was with Nokia. And 10 years ago, the iPhone was launched. And at the time, our market cap was actually higher than Apple. And I guess we know what happened. And one of the things, when you looked at the iPhone versus the Nokia phone was purely superior to Apple. But the one thing that Apple got right was the customer experience. So we're going to sort of go around and introduce the panel and get a little bio to see what they do. And Joel, we'll start with you, with Merck Millipore.
Sure. Joel Nichols, I'm the head of software and automation for Merck Millipore, as it's known in the U.S., and work on within life sciences for bioprocessing, and as we can see what we can do with software and automation as it relates to our customers.
Tom?
Hi, everybody. My name is Tom Pollock. I work for a company called Northern Gas Networks in the north of England.
Can you hear in the back?
Can you hear? I'm very quiet.
Okay, great. Yeah.
It's probably best if you can't, to be honest with you. So I work for a company called Northern Gas Networks. We're a gas distribution network in the north of England. We are currently going through quite a big, what some people, we don't call it a digital transformation, but it is a digital transformation. Whatever shred of professionalism and credibility I had was shattered when I forgot my shoes, so I apologize for that.
Good afternoon. I'm Kenny McDonald. I'm President and CEO of an investment promotion agency for Columbus, Ohio called Columbus 2020. Columbus was named the U.S. Smart City last year through a challenge grant with the U.S. Department of Transportation and Vulcan Energy. And we are working every day to grow our economy, help our companies innovate, enable infrastructure and technology to advance our economy and enable great companies like this to operate within our market. And I look forward to the conversation today.
Justin Bundick, Southwest Airlines. I help lead our data science practice as part of our corporate strategy department at Southwest.
Great. So the way we're going to do this panel is different from other panels. If you have a question during the panel, please raise your hand and ask the panelists. Also, the panelists can ask each other questions. So Tom, with Northern Gas, you have 6.7 million customers in England.
That's right.
And you have around 23,000 miles of pipe.
That's true.
So one of the premises for the question is, for the panel is, how did you sort of articulate the need for IoT for a gas company?
So, yes, you're quite right. So we have 37,000 kilometers. I work in kilometers for some reason. I'm very European. We should, with gas flowing through it, we have over 500 above ground assets, so governor houses, pressure reduction units. We should be the poster boys for IoT, but we are not because of the way that our data is structured, because of the way that our systems are handled. So relatively small company, but we have 155 systems of record at this present moment in time. So plugging in the Internet of Things would be extremely difficult for us at the minute. So the way that we sold Internet of Things to our business for investment point of view was to talk about what we could do with it, what the use case for linking up all 37,000 kilometers of pipe would be. At the minute, our customers tell us when something's wrong with our network. We don't know if something's wrong until somebody rings us up and tells us. So the major use case for us was, well, imagine if we knew what was going to happen as it happened or even before it happened. So that was what got our CEO, our investment board interested enough for us to move forward with what we're doing.
Right. And how long a process was it? And who finally was the big owner of this, the stakeholder of IoT at Northern Gas?
It's been about 2 years in the making so far. We've gone through quite a bit of what you could possibly call requirements gathering or reviews of where we are and what we need to do. The CEO owns it, so it comes from the CEO. So we were able to sell the vision to him, and it's now driven from the top all the way down with what we're doing.
Kenny, you said that you work for the city of Columbus, and in the city of Columbus there's Worthington, and there's Honda, and Victoria's Secret, and Abercrombie. So Tom is with Northern Gas, and IoT managing 23,000 miles of pipe, but your role is different. You're going to the city and sort of evangelizing. So tell me your role in sort of selling and explaining IoT to a municipality.
Well, our focus is to grow the economy, and whether it's a major retailer like Abercrombie and Fitch or Victoria's Secret, which happen to be headquartered in Columbus, or a automotive manufacturer like Honda, which also has their North American manufacturing hub in Columbus, we know that they're under tremendous pressure to change, partially because of the technologies that we're talking about at this conference. And part of our job is to not only just retain what we have. We know that that's probably going to change pretty radically. We want to work with those companies, expose them to these technologies, and also be listening very carefully to what they need in terms of infrastructure so that we can enable them to do so. That might be through our utilities, through electric, gas, and public utilities like water and wastewater. It could be through advanced mobility solutions, helping their workers actually move about our region in better ways, which not only moves physically people, but also attracts talent so that they can have the talent to, within their facilities, to do many of the things you're doing here. And finally, we recruit industry from around the world, about half of which is from outside the United States looking at our market. That enabling technology and that mindset of being an IoT-friendly community and somebody who is actually implementing these things, we think is a critical competitive advantage. It is not going to be a luxury, but a necessity in order to compete with cities around the world like Barcelona, like Shenzhen, and like cities all over North America that are doing this very, very well. So we're working at that every day. It takes leadership from the mayor. It takes an enormous amount of leadership from the private sector business leaders that are in our community who are doubling down on this inside their companies and for the community.
So when you think of IoT for Columbus, are you thinking 10 years or 2 years or 1 year or?
No, I think we're really thinking, first of all, it's happening right now. And we're seeing it being a little bit more pervasive in the cities and the villages all over central Ohio. Ohio is kind of an interesting place because most of the North American supply chains run through Ohio. And so you can see these technologies actually being implemented every day within those supply chains, in aerospace, in automotive, in energy, natural gas, a big natural gas producer. And again, just a critical focus area for us. Probably in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll start to make some big leaps and bounds. And over 10 years, the infrastructure will be something that we take for granted.
So we had a meeting before this panel, and what you'll see here are different industries, but you'll also see an airline industry which is heavily regulated, a city which has rules and regulations, a gas company that you can imagine has rules and regulations. But Joel got the award for the most regulated industry in pharmaceuticals. So we'll have a ceremony later on. We'll present you with a trophy. But how do you, in pharmaceutical, which is heavily regulated, typically slow to move, how do you implement IoT? How do you explain it? How do you budget it? How do you source for it?
That's a pretty multifaceted question by itself. If you just look at the regulations alone, it becomes challenging, and I think sometimes it's so daunting that people don't want to even try. They look at it as a constraint point, that we're not an industry that likes to do change. We tend to be pretty change adverse, and our regulatory groups tend to be relatively change adverse. We were talking earlier about just kind of some of the hiring. We've been bringing up and staffing a lot, and one of the way we try to make sure we have the right innovation is, to bring in people in rough thirds. If you can bring in a third of the people from within the company, you keep old ideas and new ideas alive from the company. If you can bring a third of the people in from the industry, you get ideas that are from the industry but that are cross-pollinated into your company. And then if you can get a third of the people from outside of industry, you get people asking the right questions. And they're the questions that we all asked once upon a time, but sometimes it's about timing. Maybe now something has changed. Maybe the political landscape has changed. Maybe the technologies have changed. Maybe it's just a shift in mindset. And that allows you to kind of rethink that maybe there is a way to move forward. And so when we started with what can we do with IoT, it wasn't here's the definitive answer. We've got some things that seem like common sense, ways that can be applied with our consumables and the equipment in which we sell to pharma and biotech companies. But there's also a little bit of, it needs to be a bit of trial and error. What can we find from the data? We know where we want to get in rough orders of magnitude, but how do we actually get there, and what can the data tell us along the way? And that has to be, again, it has to be thought through and routinely revisited so that we can make sure we're actually headed the right places.
So Justin, Southwest Airlines, 700 plus aircraft, 55,000 employees, 110 destinations and 11 hubs, throw in a couple of natural disasters to make it interesting. How are you using data science now, and how do you expect to be using it over the next 5 years or so? And then any suggestions for this audience as well? That's the rest of the panel, by the way. You've got 20 minutes to answer that question. Just joking. Yeah.
I would say this, we're in a pretty heavily regulated industry, and I just want to jump on a little bit of what you were saying. We're approaching IoT and building solutions using data science plus IoT rather pragmatically. We're going after situations and problems that can be solved that probably aren't heavily regulated right now. And we're using those and reaching out to our friends in the regulatory world and showing them what it is, how it works, what it means. From a data science perspective, especially in an industry like the airline, which is extremely competitive, daily combat, so to speak, the ability to be accurate and precise is growing more and more important because you have to win on cost, you have to win on efficiency, you have to win on brand and customer experience. And we're in a world of scaling, we're in a world of growth and competition that really calls for precise, accurate predictions, not reaction, but proactive predictions. And accuracy by nature from a data science perspective means that you need data at a very low level of granularity and contextually relevant. And I think IoT plays a really key role in helping us to build out the data infrastructure necessary to create models that drive value through precise predictions in the future. And I think we're moving into a world here where compute power is already escalating pretty rapidly. We have IoT starting to escalate, which allows us to basically sense the world just in a data form. And we now see AI, quant computing, and all these other amazing things coming online and escalating. And at some point, they're all going to meet. And when they do, I hope that Southwest Airlines is ready and capable to compete in that space.
So if we use the example, and panelists please ask questions too, if we use the example of Joel or Tom, you're leaving to go back to England tonight, how are you looking at data to impact Tom's, probably the wrong country. Joel, back to you. So in the 110 cities, how will Joel see this when he's taking Southwest? Or will he even know that it's being done? Yeah.
I think the best way to think about this is that the best algorithms out there will be ones that nobody really notices. But they will see an outcome that they appreciate and understand. Having a more on-time flight, making sure that your bags arrive, making sure that the experience you have when you're walking through the airport is efficient, is relevant, and that your experience from the time you book your flight to the moment that you get back to your home after the entire travel experience seems seamless and interactive, and that our employees are interacting with you at the moments where you need them. That you're getting information from applications and from information and displays at the airport at the moment you need it. And I think that that's really how the world of IoT and the value that it's producing, especially when combined with algorithms, is going to unfold over the next 5 years. And I do think it's probably the next 5, maybe 10 years max.
We talked about the fact that attention spans have gone from 12 to 8 seconds. It's most likely probably 6. So, and the panel is user interface. So Tom, when you're interfacing or interacting with your clients or the customers of Northern Gas, what is the role of either UI, UX, user interface, experience for the people at Northern Gas and the people that are talking to them? How is that working, or how is that evolving?
Yeah. So we were discussing earlier, I'm kind of unique in this panel because my business cannot grow its customer base. The best kind of utility is one that a customer never even knows exists. So in terms of customer experience, the best experience that a customer can have is not to ever notice that I've done anything. In terms of the only time that we interact with our customers usually is when something's gone wrong and they are in a high stress situation. So we can make that better for them, and that's a great thing. But sometimes we've caused that problem as well. So we've dug up the road, and then we have to sort that out. We don't go out and actively look for customers, but we do have the same issues that Justin has in terms of, and I'm really interested in what you're saying, and I completely agree with you, but in terms of how can you make those consistent algorithms and that consistent customer experience, but it's got to be personalized to everybody. What we're finding with our customers, obviously 6.7 million people, they're all different. Not all of them want to do things online. Some people like a phone call. Some people like a knock on the door and somebody to have a cup of tea with them. So it's how do you personalize that customer experience down to the individual that we're finding. And that's where data comes in.
Absolutely.
Big data. But
that's the real challenge for us from a customer service point of view. Can't grow a customer base, but we need to keep our customers happy and satisfied because it's the right thing to do.
Great. So how do you see like the user interface from like a network point of view?
Oh, yeah, I didn't answer your question, did I?
Yeah.
No. That's because my attention span is about 2 seconds. So in terms of what we're finding with UX and UI is and you're spot on, it's both from a customer point of view. They need it to be exactly what they want it to be, and it could be electronic, it could be something else. But also from our colleagues and employees' point of view, they need to have the right UI, right UX, because what we find is if they're happy with the technology that they're using, if they understand the technology that they're using, then A, they'll use it, and B, they'll actually, they won't need to worry about how they're using it. They can focus on their job, which is making customers safe, making customers secure and warm and happy. So UX and UI doesn't have to be flashy, it just has to work, and it has to work intuitively so that actually, from a colleague point of view, they don't even know that they're using technology. In reality, it becomes as intuitive as their phone. So they go home, they use their phone in whatever way they're using. They should be using their mobile device at work in the same way.
Okay, one more question for you, Tom. So, and a lot of the companies here, you know, why should we do IoT? What's the ROI? Do we have to do it now? Can't we wait 5 years? So how do you, when your CEO says, Tom, I love IoT, I love all these acronyms, how do you explain it to him? And how do you say at the end of it, it's going to produce this result or that result?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, he would never use the acronym IoT, but he would come up to say, Tom, how can we make sure that we are ready for our next price control review? Or how can we get to a space where actually, from a customer point of view, they don't know the difference between a gas supplier and a water supplier and an electricity supplier. They're just looking at the energy sector as a whole. And that's where you come in and say, well, actually, the best way of doing that is through IoT, is through integrated assets, not just our own integrated assets, but integrated assets from other utility companies as well. That's the main goal for us. We were talking earlier on about how important it is not just to do your own thing internally, but gone are the days where you can sort of hide away from what you're doing to get an advantage over the competition. You actually have to bring the competition with you to be able to get the full benefit of what you're doing. It's pointless having a completely integrated network that doesn't actually integrate with anything else.
Yep.
So yeah, CEO talks in abstracts. You need then to make sure that you have the solution, which usually is either IoT or machine learning or AI, to actually back that up and help him to get that there.
So Kenny, in your role as the CEO of the Columbus, Ohio sort of technology evangelist, you must speak about 12 different languages. You know, you must speak 12 different languages. You speak technology. You speak impact on economy. You speak Victoria's Secret. You speak Honda. So how do you get sort of a consensus of people from different industries and universities, and how do you dress up Columbus so that it becomes the IoT of capital of the United States?
Well, first of all, I'm from the U.S., so of course I only speak one language. I'll just clarify that. What we're finding is that the disruptions in technology are bringing our industries together. I'll give you a great example. We have something called the Columbus Collaboratory, which we've brought 7 industries together, all non-competitive industries. So a retailer, a utility, a major healthcare company, several others. Cardinal Health is one of the partners from logistics and healthcare. And they're collaborating with each other, helping each other hack into their systems. They're helping each other look at different ways of adoption. They're doing prototyping for each other, but they've formed a company actually separately out of their own IT operations to advance their own initiatives in this area. These 7 companies, while they may have been friends, CIOs may have known each other, they wouldn't have maybe talked shop quite as much as they do right now because of the sort of massive disruption across all of our sectors. So it's really driving a lot of collaboration, and it's opening up whole new windows. They've done a joint Watson project together. There's just all kinds of things that we're doing in Columbus. Our community helped them set that up, and then they're taking it to a whole new level. If I might just ask a question, because I think we were talking about talent before, it's something that we worry a ton about in Columbus is, do we have the talent to feed the industries that we're trying to recruit and keep and grow? And I know it can be challenging, particularly in bigger industries, legacy industries, regulated industries, to get and attract the talent. I'll be interested how you're attacking your talent strategies as companies right now.
Yeah, it's life science is interesting. Because if you go in particular, by the way, speaking of languages, I do speak more than just one language. I speak C#, C++, C. For anybody older in the audience, yes, COBOL, one of my favorites. So, so if I'm hiring programmers, why would somebody want to come program at a life science company when you could go into a company that actually makes just software and dedicated to software? And it is a unique challenge. But we also offer something, because as a life science company, we really impact lives. We get a chance to impact life-saving medicine that people get to have and use on a daily basis. And that does bring people in because there's some altruistic value in what they do as a result. And you can make a career out of it. When I started in life science many years ago now, I didn't realize that. But it's something that before long you realize, all right, so programming might have been one of my first joys that got me there, but there's a lot more to it. And yet I can still stay with that. What technology can do is really part of the bigger question. And honestly, it comes down to the user experience. It comes down to how do we use this? How do we use the technology? How do we use the skills to really make a difference?
I'm fortunate enough to work for a company that has a very employee-centric brand. That typically helps in hiring. We also do a lot of work with institutions, educational institutions in and around North Texas, in the Texas area, as well as along the East Coast, and do a lot of collaborative work with those organizations. We spend a lot of time with our candidates and in recruiting, bringing them into Southwest and showing them some of our lab environments and some of the tools and processes that we're working on. And in that process, we introduce them to a lot of decision makers and senior leaders through that process. Southwest is a relatively flat organization, actually. And so there's a lot of interaction that we try to show them and show that the work that they're doing is going to impact. And I think that narrative of impact is important, especially for the generation that's coming into the workforce right now. And so just reinforcing that over and over again, I think is a necessary thing in recruiting these days.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard a 5 or 6-year-old say, when I grow up, I want to work for a regional gas distribution network. So attracting talent is something that we do struggle with, but what we do have is very talented people already working for us. We do have very bright people working for us. We might not have data scientists working for us, but we have people who know our business inside and out, who we can teach. We were talking earlier that technology that we have now, you don't need to be a coder. You don't need COBOL or A, B's and C's. For nowadays, you can be like me, a bit of a numpty, but I can build a dashboard. I can put together a report. So it's getting bright people who are capable and also enthusiastic and passionate about what they do, passionate about customer service, passionate about, well, you don't get many people passionate about utilities, but passionate about helping people.
Yeah.
You can build on that. You can give them the skills.
I'll give you all an example. I have somebody on my team who has a master's degree in jazz composition. He had no background in data or data science. He has grown into that role. But what's key there is, A, he thinks in a systems form, right? Yeah. If you're going to compose a piece of jazz music, you have to think systematically, right? The other thing is he enjoys the unknown, and he's a great problem solver. Yeah. And that alone is enough to get over the threshold and really become something powerful. And he does great work.
Joel, you talked about the third being from different companies. Coca-Cola has an investment strategy where they call it 70-20-30. And so 70 is what works in the past, 20 is innovative, and 10 is God knows, So some facts. So the data is being produced right now at about 12 zettabytes of information in 2015, and that's growing to 180 zettabytes in 8 years by 2025. Yet, only 0.5% of the data is actually analyzed. So, and I was speaking with Ray Kurzweil during the summer, and I was asking him, how do we think about this in terms of our business, our lives? And he said, think about change. Think that we're going to have 20,000 years of change in the next 100 years. So, with that question, a question for the audience. In American baseball, there are 9 innings. Number 1 is the beginning, and number 9 usually is the end. So a show of hands for how many companies here are in the first inning or second inning of IoT? Wow. So
The advanced
either no one knows baseball or you guys are really far advanced. So how many people here are in the third or greater innings with IoT? Got it. Okay. So what is the urgency to act, within your company in terms of getting resources, framing a strategy, and how would you what's the process by getting things done at Merck Millipore? Yeah.
I'll bring this back to it is the customer experience, because what's the point of bringing in an IoT strategy if it's not going to do anything for you? I can collect more and more teraflops of data for what? If I'm not going to do anything with it. But if I'm impacting the customer experience, our customers in the process solutions part of life science, they're trying to make the processes faster with greater outputs on a reliable basis. So if that's really what their desired outcome is, how do they do that? And the customer experience is several-fold, because you've got somebody at the top looking at the finances for it, you've got people trying to optimize the process, and you have the people on the shop floor who are actually trying to use the system and see what's happening. So you combine all of that user experience together, and IoT now is being recognized that maybe we can use that to get less reactive and more proactive because of data. Maybe analyzing the right data can actually start optimizing in ways that is really exponential to how it's done today. And that's what gives us the urgency that we have to do something. And I won't give exactly what inning we're in, but it's the early ones, because we know we need to do something. We're trying to figure out what that is and enable it. But honestly, we're a long ways from having it truly figured out.
And Tom, how long will it take to, impossible question to answer, but to make 23,000 miles of smart pipes?
This is an impossible question to answer. It will take as long as it takes, Sam, but I don't think we'll ever get to a point where we'll say, right, well, we've done that, we've done IoT, that's it. It'll grow, it'll iterate, it'll evolve into something that probably isn't called IoT, but is based on the same principles and the same foundations. So I don't think we'll ever see the end. I couldn't answer the question of where, will you have done IoT in 10 years, because I don't think we'll ever get to the end of it, nor should we, because if we do get to the end of it, then there's something wrong. We need to keep growing, keep evolving. I think that's where technology is now. It's not, you don't do something and say, right, that's done. It's you build a foundation and then you grow it.
I'd like to comment just on the urgency comment. If it's true, and it may be true now, that we have the computing power, we have the technology, we have the capacity to solve nearly every problem that's present in cities across the world. Income inequality, infant mortality inside of our cities, workforce skills gaps, connecting people to the workplace. If we have all of that and we're not working as a city, as a public-private partnership to solve those problems with great urgency, then we're doing a disservice to all the citizens that live in our area. So the motivation for our mayors, the motivation for our business leaders, quite frankly, to unleash that capacity, and the motivation for our academic sector to provide that kind of talent and research capacity to actually accelerate that is incredible. And I think that, again, bringing back to what's the urgency, but also what's the common goal, what's bringing people together, what's breaking down some of these silos, is we now have the data that's clearly telling us that we have these issues. And now we have to get after solving them. And I feel like we have the capacity as I walk around these hallways. It's up to us to break that down and to work hard and to get it done.
I think for Southwest, there's a couple of things that have converged, fortunately, I think. I have several senior leaders at Southwest that are quite visionary, and they interact with IoT every day, and they come back to Southwest and they go, why not this in our workplace? And that's a good question to ask, and I'm glad that they're asking that. The other thing that's happened is we've grown substantially. When I joined Southwest 10 years ago, by the way, I'm one of the 10-year folks that you were asking about, we flew to 47 destinations. We're now almost at 110. We had half the fleet, half the workforce. We bought an airline since then, integrated that airline, and have expanded into international business. The scale of our operation compared to 10 years ago is dramatically different. And in order to manage that scale without exploding your bottom line, it calls for accuracy, precision, and analytic-driven decision-making. And because of that, that calls for data. And we're in a world, in a space right now where you can create a lot of data using these sensing-type devices. And I just feel like we're in this sweet spot. I was saying earlier, I think we're moving into this new golden age of the airline industry that's not going to be driven by bigger planes and exotic destinations. It's going to be driven by personal, data-driven interactions and customer experience. And it's really exciting.
Yeah.
So, what's the role of curiosity at Southwest?
Well, it's a few things. Curiosity is key, and everybody at Southwest feels like that we're going to, go bankrupt tomorrow, even though we're not. And I think that is pervasive just because of our founder and the type of culture that he and Colleen built at Southwest Airlines over the last 50 years almost. And so there's always this appetite to figure out how to do something better because we're always afraid that the competition is already doing it. And I think that culture of curiosity and change and almost feeling like you're going to go out of business tomorrow has actually proven to be quite powerful, especially when you talk about bringing or embarking on a journey with IoT and data science like we are investing in at Southwest right now.
I think, just going on that, I think the data and technology has outgrown the traditional thinking. It's challenging us to think bigger and think in a different way. We pitched a traditional IoT business case to our asset director, and his response was, well, I get that, but so what? It's just the same stuff, just done differently. I think what we need to do is think completely outside of everything that we're doing, not doing the same stuff differently, but doing different stuff in different ways. And we can learn from each other. I think you move planes, I move gas, but it's the same principle.
Yep.
So, Kenny, I think you touched on something really important, and that's sort of this partnership that you have in Columbus with health systems and auto companies and retailers. Just as the curiosity question, I actually want to ask you, Joel, as well, curiosity. We think about partnerships, how much of a driver is that for IoT in terms of speed to market?
I think it's critical. I'll just perhaps answer the question a slightly different way. In our market, we have a really good economy right now. We actually have fairly low employment. Let's say we have all the jobs we need in general. Maybe the biggest issue is supplying the talent for the appetite for all of the talent we currently have. But we also know that automation, robotics, things like that is going to erode, and there's a burning platform that we're standing on top of. So companies are going to innovate. We're going to be in a much different position in 2 or 3 years. What are people going to do? How do we continue to advance the ball? If I interview maybe 300-400 companies a year in our market and around the world, and some are visionaries, some are very curious. Most of the curious companies are very good. Some of the companies are trying to hang on to something that isn't going to last very much longer, and they're probably eroding their own competitiveness right now. And we worry about that. How I think about that is those jobs are going to go away. That investment is going to go away. That tax base is going to go away. And so I have to worry about that and try to be talking to the curious companies and constantly trying to fit people together to try to attract them and keep them and grow them in our region. And the job has changed dramatically where we're showing technologies to these companies, some of which are Fortune 1000 companies that are trying to hang on to the past. And we're saying as a community, we want you to move forward because we're worried about your competitiveness. we're seeing the same thing in our own market. If we own that as a city and as a municipal or a public sector area, same is true for us too. So if we're not innovating, if our CIOs aren't collaborating, aren't innovating, then we're going to fall behind as a service provider to those companies as well. So it takes both entities trying to be curious and innovate.
So when we're at 5 minutes, so if there are questions from the audience, please raise your hand and we will
Can't see how many.
answer any questions. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yep. Please say your name and
Thank
company,
you.
please.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Fernanda. Thank you for your insights. I know you can't see me, but my question, I'm a multi-channel retail professional, and my question could be addressed to any sector actually, but especially, let's say this way today, for utilities, for telecommunications, for transport companies, bank institutions. We hear a lot about IoT and the solutions that we can get from that, and I still see there is a lack of communication or integration between the traditional channels and the internet solutions. So I really would like to hear your opinion about that, because I see there's a lack of integration. No? If you go to the brick and mortar stores, or if you actually need any kind of assistance that is done by internet or by other channel, this integration is still not finished, is still not built. So are we actually going to a next step before we're taking care of this integration that I see that it's much necessary? Thank you.
So I actually think that they can be done in tandem. I agree that that's a key role. If you look at an airline, right, we have partners that we need to be working with because we have a common customer. And so I think there are opportunities in areas where the chain of a customer's journey and how that customer is impacted by multiple entities needs to be integrated in a way. And the data along that chain needs to be integrated. I think that's a broader question that I think will come to a head because of the scale of IoT and how quickly it's moving. And I don't know if there's a great answer for that yet. It is something I know I'm thinking about pretty broadly, and conversations that I'm having with partners that we know, either in the regulatory area or our partners in our cities that we fly to, and how we can better provide for our common customers through their entire journey.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Fernanda. I love you, in fact, because you've just said exactly what you need to say. But it's pointless if you don't have the integration. What you have is an internet of a thing, or 10 internets of 10 things, and you still have the situation where we go out, dig up the road, and then the next week the water company comes out and digs up the same road after we've dug it up. It is completely pointless. You're quite right. So there needs to be that level of total integration across industries. I'm never going to sell water. Water company's never going to sell gas. We're not in competition, but we have the same customer. So you need to look at it from a customer's point of view in terms of, well, what are we integrating with? Absolutely.
There's probably a conversation up here with the panel afterwards that could be fruitful. And also, to answer part of your question, there are companies that are brilliant at certain things that partnership would be good. Like the most brilliant company that I'm familiar with is Coca-Cola. They have their supply chain in real time globally. So there's a lot that can be learned from them. Facial recognition is new to the market, but not new to the casinos. So if you're looking to learn about facial recognition, you go to Las Vegas for a couple of days and talk to the casinos. So, and there are just general questions that companies have, whether they're airlines, admitting patients to hospitals. Another question? Yep.
Thanks for the great panel. My question is about the small corner of the agribusiness. The profile of the users of the agribusiness is generally is a primary sector. The places where the farms are, the idiosyncrasy of the sector is offering, in a general way, a different scenario. How do you see the implementation of the IoT business and services around this, taking into account these differences, these different profiles, and in a growing interest scenarios could be the agribusiness, but it's quite different. How do you see this scenario?
So it's IoT for the agriculture business.
Exactly so.
Okay.
I'll go ahead.
I'll throw out a kind of a general. I think this is one of the challenges with IoT as a whole. The technology by itself is not worth anything, in my opinion, if you don't have a focus on what problem are you trying to solve. And, you know, farmers are solving different problems than they're solving with pharmaceutical manufacturers, than someone in the utilities and someone in airlines. They're all different problems, but what are you going to do with the data? How much do you need real time? What's your leading and lagging indicators? What's the context behind the problem you're trying to solve? And then how can IoT be used in that solution? But that's what I like about this overall panel idea. It's about the customer experience.
Well, just supply chain thinking, right? It's the food and the agriculture sector mixed together, critical for any state, any province, any city to function properly. And we've got to look at look at it as a supply chain and have IoT actually attack each piece of it. It's actually something we're working on in the Columbus area as well, working with the trucking providers, the agribusiness. The university is a really big player in this around not only precision ag, but also food safety and security, a big focus of Ohio State. We've tried to blend those things together. We're having some very interesting conversations about that.
Okay, and I'm getting the proverbial hook. So thank you very much. You've been a terrific audience, and please thank the panel.